Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story today takes place outside a supermarket, where one man's peaceful shopping trip turned into a battle over parking. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Don't mess with a man's parking spot. One fine day, my mom and I set off for what was supposed to be a quick supermarket run, which if you have an Indian mom, you know is never actually quick. We usually park right in front for an easy escape, but that day the parking lot was packed, so I found a spot a little further away and parked. And that's when he appeared. Like a parking ninja with a personal vendetta, a jockey showroom employee materialized and declared, "No parking here." Huh? I looked around. That's when I realized I'd parked in front of a jockey showroom, which is beside the supermarket. But hold on, I wasn't just going to take this guy's word for it. I circled my car like a CSI investigator, inspecting every detail. The findings? My car was beyond the shop boundary. I wasn't blocking the entrance. The giant jockey hoarding, featuring some awkwardly muscular guy in briefs, was fully visible from the road. No parking sign anywhere. In short, my parking job was innocent until proven guilty. But this guy, he was determined to make me guilty anyway. Him, "No parking here." Me, "There's no sign that says I can't park here." Him, "You still can't park here." "I'm not blocking anything." Him, "No parking." Me, "I'm outside your showroom boundary." Him, "No parking." At this point, I realized this quarrel could last a while, so I turned to my mom and said, "You go ahead and shop, I'll deal with this." She, being the smart woman she is, walked off to the supermarket while I prepared for battle. After a few more rounds of pointless verbal combat, I had an idea, a genius time-wasting idea. Me, "Can your customers park here?" Him, pauses, "Yes." Me, "Congratulations, I'm a customer now." And with that, I marched into the jockey showroom with the confidence of a man who had absolutely no intention of buying anything. I started slow. "Show me a brief." He brought one out. Do you have this in blue?" He sighed and fetched a blue one. "Actually, maybe black is better." Another sigh, another trip to the shelf. 5 minutes in, I could feel his soul leaving his body, but I wasn't done. "I don't think I like these. Show me some vests." More running around, more wasted time. I studied each piece like I was choosing my wedding outfit, not underwear. Just as I was about to move on to socks, my mom called. "Mom, where are you? I'm done shopping." Mission accomplished. I turned to the exhausted shopkeeper, flashed my most polite smile, and said, "I don't think I need anything today." Then I walked out like I'd just won the war. As I got into my car, I stole one last glance at him. He was standing there, staring at me, his eyes filled with rage, regret, and the haunting realization that he'd wasted 10 minutes of his life for absolutely nothing. But the best part? A month later, I passed by this same spot and saw a different car parked in the exact same place. And there was no customer inside the jockey showroom. That's when I knew he'd learned his lesson. Moral of the story, if you mess with a man's parking, be prepared to sell underwear to the most indecisive customer in history. I will respect signage specifying a specific store, but if it's a shared parking lot, as long as I'm shopping in that shopping center, I'm legally parked. I would have told that guy to get stuffed. But I like your method better. And our second story. He ignored the warnings, the receipt, and the manager. The police and courts finally made him listen. Back in '89, I had a customer come in and ask to buy 20 Amigas for their classroom. I made a point of letting them know that most schools use Apples and that none of the software or hardware they have will work with Amigas. They said their secretary told them it does, and to just buy them because they're less expensive than the Apple IIGS. I must have told them the truth a dozen times through the process and also showed them some magazines that explain this. I also informed him that if he were to bring them back for refund or credit, there would be a 20% restocking fee, and all the original packaging and paperwork is required. Also, they can't be registered for warranty at all. I also included on the receipt the above info, multi-party receipt that the customer signed. So an hour later, off he goes with 20 units. No monitors, no printers, no software. Well, next weekend, guess who shows up? claimed I told him they would work with the Apple software their school uses. Then got loud and pissy when I told him because he didn't keep the original packaging/paperwork that I couldn't give him any refund. Manager involved pointed out the receipt statement and actually backed me up. Guy got even more mad and stormed off saying he was going to the police and sue me and the company. He left the computers. And he did go to the police, and he did sue me and the company. Bailiff called and asked for our statement and laughed when we told him. Also told us that if the guy doesn't reclaim his abandoned equipment within 30 days of when he left it, we could dispose of it. The courts told him that too. After calling the school to fill them in, they told us they don't want the equipment because it doesn't work with their software, etc., and that we shouldn't have told him it would. We faxed them a copy of the receipt showing we told him it wouldn't, and the principal said he didn't see the receipt, just what the guy said. Turns out the guy paid for all of it out of his pocket and expected the school to reimburse him, but when nothing worked, they said they wouldn't, to take things back and get what will, and they'll reimburse him for that. This explained why he actually sued me and the company. Well, another call back to the courts to add that info, and they rejected the lawsuits and sent a cop to his home to stop pursuing the matter, or they would charge him with harassment, which would get him fired from teaching. All that took a good 50 days, by which time we had disposed of the computers. He came in wanting all of them so he could resell them as used. We showed him the paperwork from the courts where they told him and us he had 30 days to claim his abandoned computers or we could dispose of them, and that we did. I never saw that a-hole again till 10 years later when I was working for a large corp in IT. He was working in one of the offices and purchasing. He avoided me like the plague. I never said a word about the whole event till he left for another company. Turned out he'd lost thousands of dollars worth of computer accessories, but they couldn't prove he actually stole it. Wow, that's a crazy story. How could someone make that kind of mistake in 1989? Apple IIs were firmly entrenched in education, and the only two serious alternatives were IBM PCs and Macintoshes. I can feel how you must have been feeling too, repeatedly warning the customer about incompatibilities and standards and such. The customer is definitely not always right. And when you know it, it hurts. And our next story. After I quit, my old boss sent a cease and desist because customers followed me. I worked as a night technician for a car dealership, the kind of place that runs on caffeine, customer drama, and service tickets that somehow never end. I'd been there for about 4 years, working long shifts, taking emergency calls, and using my personal phone because management refused to issue work phones. My personal number was basically the 24/7 service line. Customers would text and call me at all hours about their vehicles. After years of asking, management finally caved and gave me a work phone, 3 months before I quit. Here's how that happened. One of my coworkers, a great guy who'd been in the trenches with me, left for a management position at another dealership. Not long after, he called me and said, "Hey man, I could use a solid night tech over here. Pays better, hours are decent." I wasn't planning on leaving, but it got me thinking. When my boss caught wind that I was being courted by another dealer, he panicked. The next day, I got pulled into the office. Suddenly, I was valuable. They offered me a $5 per hour raise to stay. I thanked them, but I was curious, so I took an informal interview at my buddy's new shop just to see what they had to say. They offered me another $5 per hour on top of that. That made my decision easy. I accepted the new offer and handed in my resignation. The general manager at my old dealership, let's call him Steve, came storming into the service manager's office while I was turning in my notice. He didn't say congratulations or even a simple goodbye. Instead, he went full scorched earth, accusing me of being disloyal and taking advantage of the company. So I kept it classy. I thanked all my regular customers for trusting me with their vehicles over the years and told them they could always reach me if they needed advice or service. After all, I'd been using my personal phone for company business for years. They already had my number. Within a week of starting at the new dealership, several of my old customers reached out and followed me there. They said they trusted me, not the brand name, and preferred my work anyway. It was flattering, until my old dealer's management found out. Cue the cease and desist letter. They accused me of taking confidential customer data with me because clients had my number, the same number they'd been using for years when management refused to issue work phones. It was laughable. They even started harassing the customers who followed me, claiming I was poaching them. The irony, my new dealership was buying parts from my old one since they were different brands and they hated seeing me working on their vehicles in plain view. That harassment backfired spectacularly. My new company's legal department hit them right back with their own cease and desist for interfering with our customers and business relationships. The fallout was delicious. Their reputation tanked, word spread among clients, and I picked up 5 new customers who came to me specifically because of how poorly they'd handled everything. They tried to drag my name through the mud, saying I was unprofessional and stole clients, but in the end, their service department lost more business than they could handle. Meanwhile, I was busier than ever, making more money, working with a better team, and actually being appreciated for once. Their dealership? Last I heard, they're barely keeping up, short-staffed, bleeding customers, and scrambling to rebuild their reputation. Turns out the best revenge was simply taking my skills and their customers' trust somewhere I was valued. And our last story. They said it was empty land. The law disagreed. So I live up in the mountains above a tourist town. Beautiful forests, quiet roads, and lots of undeveloped land owned by people who only visit a few times a year. Some of them have future dreams of building a cabin or a vacation home, but for now it's just trees, trails, and dirt roads. One of those landowners, let's call him Jude, lives out of state. Every summer he drives up with his old camper, spends a few weeks hiking and camping on his property, then heads home. He's a chill guy, very respectful of the community, and he keeps his land natural. Just a fire pit and a couple of cleared spots for tents. He's been doing this for years without any issues. Well, this last summer he came up for his usual trip and got one hell of a surprise. He pulls into his property, parks the truck, and sees something odd through the trees: bright orange fencing, plywood sheets, and concrete bags. He walks closer, thinking maybe the county or utility company did some work without telling him. Nope, it was worse. Right there in the middle of his forest lot, a group of 20 and 30-something bros were in the middle of building a damn skateboard park. I'm not kidding. They had graded the dirt, poured concrete ramps, built rails, and were setting up some kind of half-pipe. There were pickup trucks, coolers of beer, and one guy blasting music from a Bluetooth speaker. These weren't kids messing around. These were full-grown adults with tattoos, tool belts, and apparently zero concept of personal property. Jude, being the reasonable man he is, didn't go nuclear immediately. He walked up and said something along the lines of, "Hey fellas, this is my land. What are you guys doing?" One of them, I'll call him Mike, looks up and goes, "Whoa, dude, chill. We're just building the spot. Nobody's even using it yet." Jude blinks, thinking maybe he misheard. "Yeah, that's my property you're building on." Mike, in peak surfer logic, replies, "It was empty, man. Nobody ever comes here. We figured you wouldn't care." Jude, "I care. That's trespassing. You can't just start pouring concrete on private land." Another guy who was literally holding a trowel chimes in with, "It's not a big deal, man. We'll keep it clean. Everyone needs a place to skate, you know?" Apparently, this crew of lifelong locals had decided that since there wasn't a public skate park nearby, they'd make their own. And the best place to do it was on land they didn't own because, quote, it was just sitting there. Jude told them they had 10 minutes to pack up and leave before he called the sheriff. They grumbled and rolled their eyes, but eventually started gathering their tools. When they left, Jude drove into town, filed a police report, and gave the county photos of the construction site. And that's when it got really satisfying. Turns out a few of those guys weren't exactly strangers to the local authorities. The deputy recognized one of their trucks from previous issues. Apparently, the same group had been caught building illegal dirt jumps in a protected forest area the year before. This time, though, they went too far. They didn't just dig holes or move dirt, they altered private land and poured concrete without a permit. That's destruction of property, trespassing, and unauthorized construction all rolled into one. The county got involved. A few weeks later, I saw them out there, the same guys, under sheriff supervision, tearing down everything they built. No hired crews, no help, just the dudes with their sledgehammers and shovels breaking apart their precious skate park. They had to haul out every single chunk of concrete they'd poured, fill in the holes, and restore the land to its original condition. And Jude, he didn't even have to lift a finger. The law handled it for him. He just stood there at the edge of the property, arms crossed, watching them sweat under the summer sun. A few of us neighbors came out to see the show, and let's just say karma rolled faster than any skateboard that day. By the end of it, the land was back to normal, the skate bros got fined for trespassing and damage, and the sheriff made it very clear that if they were caught doing anything like that again, they'd be spending time in county jail. A few months later, the town council actually approved funding for a small public skate park in town, something they'd been trying to push through for years. If those guys had just waited, they'd have had a legit place to skate. Instead, they learned a hard lesson about property rights and about what happens when you treat someone's land like your personal playground. And the best part is the ending. It's not just that they got in trouble, it's that they had to personally, physically destroy the thing they put all that work into. There's no better punishment. A fine is abstract, community service is a chore. But swinging a sledgehammer into your own stupid concrete ramp for hours in the hot sun? That's a core memory being formed right there. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.